Good afternoon, you lovely people. I'm Jack Chew. I hope you can hear me okay. Just been having a bit of a mess with my internet. I don't know why that's been a bit glitchy, so forgive me if it's blurred. Or you might prefer it if it's blurred. You know, that's what I get, those sorts of heckles from you lot all the time. Maybe that's a good thing if it's filtering it and it's not working. But yeah, do let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Welcome to the Friday show. And often these things are usually a bit more lively. You guys are all giddy on Fridays, and so I hope you can join us in this discussion with Ash James, who's joining me in a second. He's in our green room, swearing at me and pulling faces at me, and I can see him there loitering. So I will bring him on in a second. But yeah, do let me know if you can hear okay and if the stream is stable. Forgive me if it is a bit blurred. I don't know what's going on with my internet here, but I will sort it as soon as I can. I just used that intro sequence for the last time because we've got a new one coming and I was feeling a bit nostalgic, but I do apologize. I know it blares out in your ears, but yeah, it is the last time I intend to use it. But right, a couple of clicks and I'll bring you Ash James. Where is he? Ash, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, mate. How are you?
Nice one. Happy days. Yes, I'm very well, thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks for joining me. So there's a lot happening in your life at the moment, mate. You've got a transition to a new role, and it's an important one. And I felt I'd just love to chat through things with you. But my first question's fairly straightforward, I hope, which is, you know, how did it come about?
Yeah, interesting, really. So I had it sent to me on WhatsApp by a colleague. You know, have a look at this job and kind of had a bit of a look and didn't think much of it to start with. And then someone else sent it me and then someone else sent it me. So obviously there was a feeling by a few of my colleagues that it might be
they wanted rid of you.
Yeah. Either that they wanted rid of me very quickly or that they felt the role might be suitable for me. So yeah, had a look into it. Well, the job title, I think, if you remember, it said the best job in physiotherapy. So I thought I better have a look at this. Yeah. And then, yeah, you know, just thinking about the CSP and my own relationship with them, I'd largely had a positive relationship in the past. You know, I've been a spokesperson for the CSP since 2017. I've really good interactions with John Ryan. They seem like a really dynamic team over there. I've been to Physio UK a number of times and spoken to some of the professional advisors and yeah, it seemed like a sensible move for me forward from where I am now at Connect in largely clinical education.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And obviously me and many others are delighted to see you in that post. For those that don't know, it's the Director of Practice and Development at the CSP, one of them 4 directors answerable to the CEO. And I think what I really find really interesting is that knowing you as I do, both in and out of work, really, is that you have a breadth of interests and you're someone that, as always, even compared to, you know, I'm fairly promiscuous across disciplines, but I'm still very MSK and rehab, whereas you probably more so than even me have then really bridge that gap through your interest in say Occ Health and even your academic studies, and then by being a nerd for education in more recent years, you've really been someone that has transcended MSK, and that maybe is, am I right in thinking that might be tempting for you as well to just have that breadth in this new role?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely reflected in my early career. As you mentioned there, I've worked in the NHS. I've done some work in private practice, been in the independent sector with Connect and the NHS, education, professional sport with the Welsh Rugby Union, and occupational health. So I do feel like I've had a really kind of broad experience, largely albeit in MSK to a certain extent, but I've certainly had a broad experience in physiotherapy. And I think, you know, even from a student, I think classically I went into physiotherapy because I was into sport at the time. But I remember once I was in my training, you know, really enjoying my respiratory rotations. I spent some time on intensive care with an incredible educator. And I suppose that's where I started my love of education. I just thought this clinician was incredible, working in intensive care. And I think my interest has always been in the profession broadly. And I think that's reflected in my career. You know, I am interested in all of physiotherapy and what makes it a great profession. And I suppose I've wanted to try and experience as much of that as I possibly could once I've qualified. So it's been an interesting career road, but yeah, this certainly feels like a really good next step in terms of experiencing more of it.
No, brilliant. That's great news. I think it's good for all of us to have you looking deeper into that role, especially with regards to say applying your expertise then to sort of policy reforms, as well as then the broader things within the professional body. So no, it's really exciting to see what you do with it and how you get to know that role. Obviously not in post just yet. We've worked together largely in recent years on sort of change agency through MSKR and one of the founding associate directors of MSKR, of course. What made you feel that this role was for you with regards to your interest in that?
Yeah, as you said, then I've been, I think early in my career less so. I was more concerned about not missing a code requirement than I was in change. But the interest over the last few years in change has certainly increased, and I think when I look at the things that the CSP have done over the last few years, and certainly even yesterday they launched the MSK standards document.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've had the right to rehab stuff. I was on a webinar a couple of days ago about mandatory vaccinations. That their voice and their ability to have a seat at the table and influence change is a large one. And as I've said, I'm interested in physiotherapy. I'm a passionate physiotherapist, as well as interested in how we can best further the care for patients, whether that's working as a physiotherapist or as part of an AHP group. So, I think however I can do that, I want to do that. And I've certainly felt over the last few years that I enjoy the patient-to-patient interaction, and I have done. But if I've got the ability to change the potential course of care for 50 patients, 100 patients, all better for that, whether that's through education or whether that's through pathway design or whether that's through policy. I'm interested in driving that change forward in any way that I can.
Just in with regards to a step in your career, which is fairly inevitable for many, and I've got my version of this, or I can keep my hand in as I see fit, really. But it becomes a little more, at least clinically distant, in that you've got less direct face-to-face contact time and stuff. Is that making you twitch a little bit? I spoke to Brad Neal just before Christmas, who'd just gone full-time academia, and he was texting me having a bit of a crisis of identity and stuff. You've had a bit more of a step change than he has, granted, and even that I had, but. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah. It's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? I suppose it's not why you get into it initially, is it? You get into it because you want to see patients. So I think it has been slightly more gradual for me. So I think it'll be less of a jolt. I've stepped away from face-to-face patient care more and more, particularly over the last 18 months. And I think the pandemic accelerated that to a certain extent. So it will be strange, not seeing patients as often as I have done in the past. But as I've said, it's about what I try and keep in focus. And I think what Brad will, with the research that he does as well, is how many more patients you could potentially influence in the role that you're in. So whilst it does feel strange, because ultimately we are clinicians, we want to be in front of patients. I think I've got to keep in sight the end goal of influencing as many as I can through the work that we do.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Obviously, then that step is one that is, in recent years, you've acquired more and more leadership positions to go alongside an obvious leadership skill set and disposition that you've had since I've certainly known you, and no doubt long before that as well, as a character. But just talk to me a little bit about how that's developed and what you're looking forward to at that next level with regards to that style of your work.
Yeah, I have always enjoyed leadership positions, I suppose, and I've enjoyed kind of putting myself forward and never really been shy to. I've always tried to put myself in those positions. I think it is a bit strange, really. When I speak to my wife about it, she says, "Why do you put yourself in uncomfortable positions all the time?" I don't really think about it too often, but she's right. I suppose I do always put myself in situations that are can be uncomfortable or other people might find strange to do. But I do enjoy that bit. I enjoy the being in comfortable positions and trying to improve myself as well as other people. I think over the last 18 months in particular with Connect, what I've developed and what I enjoy is and even more so recently, is seeing the development of people around me, being in that education role. It's about how you can improve the team around you as well, not just about how you can improve yourself or how you can kind of push yourself forward. So, I know there's an incredibly talented bunch of people at the CSP, both who've been clinicians before, who haven't been clinicians, in every department. So I'm really looking forward to working with the team. I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity. I think leadership-wise, one of the biggest things for me in leadership is communication.
Right.
I hold that probably closer to my heart than anything else. You can go on lots of courses and there's lots of models of leadership, and there's lots of different ways to do things which we can upskill in. But I think at the heart of everything is communication for me, and that's hopefully something hopefully people that connect will attest I've done well over the last 18 months, but hopefully I can continue to do.
No, that's good. Well, I certainly know that's something that sort of our shared stakeholders through MSK and the work we did there, of course, have really appreciated that honesty, but also, there's a real there isn't ever a step change between what Ash is thinking and what he's saying. It goes through an appropriate sort of filter where you're not blurting stuff out willy-nilly, but similarly it's something that you really believe in what you're saying and passionate about your work. I've been critical, as you know, and a sort of cartoon juxtaposition between leadership and hashtag leadership, I've called it before, whereby things sometimes get a bit contrived or performative and things like that. I can't think of anyone that is further away from that cartoon. It's like, I really would say and vouch for you to not be that. But it's argued, and I understand why, where people sometimes even texting me saying like, oh, you've put like hashtag leadership bingo up on Twitter, and I've really seen myself in it, and I don't like being that person. But then when I speak to them about it, they feel that there's some inevitability of that happening, where things become a bit more contrived and diplomatic, and sort of the edge is taken off because of the responsibilities that come. So whilst, I'm not saying that you need to divorce yourself from that phenomena, because I think there's something about that I think is fair compared to little old pirate me, shooting my mouth off on the internet to some degree. But what do you feel you can do to make sure that you don't end up being too far away from what feels like your more natural style?
Yeah, I think that's developed from watching too much of The Office growing up, and everything I don't want to be is you never want to be Brent, do you? No one ever wants to be Brent. And I think I've always got that in the back of my mind. Just don't be Brent, I think is probably a better hashtag to go forward than leadership. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And for me, the leaders that I see that do it really well, even the ones that might use some of the the hashtag leadership speak that you're talking about, and might seem like that, they always seem genuine. And what I would never want to be is disingenuous in what I'm saying, and that's what I try not to do quite often. And I think that's for me the veil that comes down when people start to question what they're saying as a leadership, is when they seem disingenuous. So that's something that I will always try and maintain. I might not, I think if you get to the point where you don't know yourself, it's probably too far, isn't it? But yeah, I'd like to think that that's something I will try and hold on to. And like you say, that there are situations where you might have to hold on to information that you haven't before. But I think most of the time I will try and be genuine and candid as often as I can be.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I suspect as much. I think if you did end up descending into being David Brent, then I will be. I can't remember what the name of Martin Freeman's character is, but the sort of the sarcastic sort of peer regulation you can expect from me and many, I imagine. So I don't worry about you going in that direction, but I can so understand those phenomena and respect them. But it'd just be that I think that some of the sort of charm of you as a leader and watching the successes of that has certainly come from that authenticity, and I'm not surprised that that's a priority for you to hold on to. You could have gone in so many different directions with your career. I think it wouldn't have surprised me if I'd have got a call from you or obviously saw the news that you had moved in a certain direction, but it could have been academia, education, it could have been research, it could have been that you'd just gone back into getting stuck in into clinical practice. I'm a bit upset that I didn't manage to snap you up into Choose Health, of course, and put you to work there. But it has ended up being more policy related. Now I know that that's going to reach into all your other interests, but was that because the job emerged and you give it some thought, or was that always an intention and plan?
It definitely always wasn't an intention and plan. And I think when I look back at the things that I've done clinically in academia, so I did 3 years of a part-time PhD before COVID struck, and we won't touch on that. It's a bit of a sore subject at the moment. But I started my journey in academia. But everything that I've kind of touched on, the PhD was around education. What I enjoyed most when I was in a clinical scenario was trying to improve the understanding of patients about their own health and behavior change and all of those things. So I think regardless of where I've been in my career, not knowing it at the time, kind of reflecting back, I've always been in the business of kind of education and behavior change and change management, I think. And I suppose I see this job as the ultimate opportunity to do that on a large scale, I think. So when I was applying for the role, reflecting back on all of my career, I think it's inadvertently always pointed me in that direction, but certainly without me realizing it. I suppose it's a culmination of lots of my interests in one role.
No, that's good, and it obviously keep you interested in the fact that it's got that variety within it. I think with regards to exerting influence, I think the CSP is such a juggernaut because of the size of it relative to the amount of physiotherapists in the country, I think, compared to many member organisations. And there's several mechanisms for that. But it is a large membership body of a substantial professional group in healthcare. What do you think it is then, if I had to get you to name one or two sort of core things that do knit that together? Because it does seem to some, especially outsiders, that they just can't comprehend, especially because, in my own household, right, I've got Charlotte treating poorly children and me treating otherwise fairly well adults. So you've got this full, it just seems that, well, what is it that would then unify? If pressed, what would you feel it is that then can really generate a profession that has an identity that is coherent?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question. That's certainly not an easy one, and certainly one that I can't answer easily. Without having started, I think it makes it even more difficult. But I think if answering as a member, because I am still a member at the moment, so I think answering as a member, the one thing that I see from the outside looking in is particularly around the Right to Rehab campaign. I think rehab is something that unites us, whether we're in a first contact role, whether we're in pediatrics, whether we're in intensive care. All of our jobs ultimately are pointed towards returning an individual to the things that they love and enjoy, regardless of the setting that they're in. Well, like I said, whether it's primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, we're all aimed at improving people's lives to return them to the things that they love. And I think that for me is one thing that unifies us as a profession. And in lots of circumstances that I've seen, something we do really, really well. So yeah, I think if I was pressed for an answer as a member, that is the one I would give. And once I start and I'm on the inside, then I'm sure more will come to light, and I'm sure there's lots of plans that have started that will further illuminate that view.
Yeah, you'll get more insights into what it is that joins all those dots, I guess. But yeah, I so agree with that. As you know, with regards to rehab, I'm forever using that word, but for good reason, is that I do think it can be a great unifier, and I suppose that would apply as well. I always get these wrong, so that's an intra-disciplinary question. Let's go inter. Is that how would you feel about then? Because you've had positive relationships with a variety of other stakeholder groups beyond physiotherapy, and that's only a good thing. There are some that would argue, not me in this instance, and I'm not just but generally that that is the CSP by nature, it's a professional body that has its own entrance criteria, and rightly so, and deserves to be such. But is there, do you see that as being a concern that you might then become distant from that wider healthcare community?
Can you just repeat that last question again? Because I was distracted by one of the comments that came in. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No bother. It's all right. Well, is it this one? Is this what distracted you?
No, it wasn't that one. That distracted me at the start, and I chose to completely ignore it. Thanks, Jim.
Cheers.
It wasn't that one.
No, Sarah said hashtag right for rehab. Couldn't agree more. The authentic Ash is spot on. Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. Really appreciate that. Well, my question is that some, I could understand some being concerned that because you've obviously got some really positive relationships with other stakeholders and other disciplines and groups, etc., professions and stuff, that the CSP is quite rightly physiocentric. That's the gig, and it needs to represent that, and rightly so. But is that something that you fear you'll miss, or do you think that that's going to be helpful, and you're still going to need to necessarily care about how physiotherapy fits in that wider healthcare community?
Yeah, look, I think any relationship is helpful. I think the stakeholder relationships that I have now, I think will only improve and physiotherapy standing. I am a believer in the AHP model. I think we've got a lot to give in that area, and I think there's lots that differentiates us from other people. Lots of things that make us the same, and it's those differences and similarities that we need to lean on to make sure that we're both driving forward as physiotherapy as a profession, but also making sure that we're integrating where necessary with others, and that that's a complex. That's a simple answer to a complex question, I think, and I'm not even sure I said anything in that 30 seconds that was particularly useful. I think the answer is I don't know fully at the moment, but I think relationships are positive regardless.
No, I think that's fair. I think it's hard to exactly what that looks like. Of course, I'm not going to be holding to you two when all is it's not even new. You're not even in post yet, of course, but it's more. Because it is sometimes those things needn't contrast, do they? That's what I got from your answer. Is that there are pro physiotherapy and positive progressions that the profession can make that are then it benefits wider healthcare for a strong physiotherapy profession. It's that these things don't contrast; they're not competing. And the interest that you mentioned there before, of course, around rehab, is that there's a real vested interest in that, as well as where the evidence is pointing us, and sensible ethical practice points us. What's the sort of time frame on it then, mate? When are you in post?
The beginning of March is when I officially start. So yeah, still at Connect at the moment, and tying things on there, making sure that the academy is here to stay and helping hand all that stuff over. So yeah, I think it's about 4 weeks. Yeah, I think I've given myself a week off in between.
You got your teeth really stuck into education and then scaling that and making it sustainable. The thing that was fascinating for me is just how much you got stuck into sort of pedagogy, and you went into the processes. How is it we learn, and presented content for us, of course, to that effect. I imagine that's super compatible with regards to some of the leadership stuff we've talked about before, as well as your own development as to how you're then going to adapt to this new role. So how clean is that transition?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I was interested in that. And what I saw when I started to get into education is that, there's lots of competency frameworks out there. There's lots of things to indicate us in the right direction as to what to learn. There's lots out there on the what. We need to know this. We should know that. Learn this. But there wasn't much of the how. There's not much. Well, how do you optimally? I mean, there is lots on that. There's lots of literature on that, but I didn't see anyone talking about that as much in the physiotherapy space. There's lots of it there's lots more of it in medicine, for example, as doctors are training, that they talk about that a lot more. But I didn't see us talking about it as much. So I thought I'd try and bring that into this space a little bit more. And I see the same around leadership. There's lots of leadership theory about what to do. In this situation, do this. In this situation, do that. But where the money is for me is, well, how do you do that? That's where the joy is. That's where the development will be. Certainly for me, moving forward, is I'm sure once I start, and certainly when I started at Connect, there was lots of, well, we need to do this, lots of what to do, but it's the how that interests me more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And these things always have to evolve and adapt, and I think that's where applying good base theory is appropriate, and why it shouldn't have been a surprise to me how much you got into that, because it's like, right, what are the nuts and bolts of this, rather than getting lost in just the technicals. You've got to actually drive towards some progressive change, and I know you have done, and I know you've been really well respected in that role, and will leave a really decent legacy in that, as you have done each position. I as you move from organisations over the years, I'm still, as is my job, in touch with where it came from. And as much as I've been looking for it, mate, ahead of this interview, I can't find anyone giving me any dirt or not speaking really highly of you. They miss you greatly, of course, and I'm sure Connect will too. But it's in all of our interests for you to be applying what you are into the CSP. It's really exciting to see you in that position. I think it's an absolute. They've got a hell of a catch in you. I think it's been a really great appointment, and one that I'm excited to see where it takes you. Whilst I totally respect not in post yet, etc., and that it's a funny question for me to ask. But in general, have you got ideas for what it looks like in the early days of that role? How are you going to adapt to it, and what are your plans?
The short answer is no. As my mum always used to remind me growing up, you got two of these and one of these. So I'll be spending lots of my early days listening and learning. I think I've got a lot to learn about what's going on at the CSP, how it works, who the team are, getting to know the team. Because as much as I would like to go in and we'll all want to drive change, we're not going to do that unless we're working effectively together. So that's my priority. I see this role very much like a caretaker role. Natalie did it before me. I will do it for a certain amount of time, and then I will hand it over to someone else. But it's a caretaker role for me, and the only goal at the moment, or the only vision or ambition that I've got, is to leave the profession in a slightly better place than I've found it, which probably is a bit #leadership, isn't it? And a bit overtly profound and a bit Brent, but that is my only intention at the moment, and to get to know everyone and to drive change together.
No, I get that, but I've seen you do that well. As it's that you need to approach something like this without sort of prejudice or some form of expectation that is too baked in. It'd be clumsy too. And as I say, I've seen you do that well before. There's been massive unprecedented challenges that we've faced down before with regards to MSKR just being one example of it. But in this instance, you've got this opportunity to go in, listen, understand, learn, and adapt from what you find. It's just much like if you were fetching a patient from the waiting room, you would not for a second not try and tease out what you could from them on an individual level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a bit of lessons learned from when I started at Connect. I think I was giddy about starting, and you go in thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And you get in there and you either can't do it for very good reason, or some of the ideas you had were rubbish, and there's people around you with better ideas. So yeah, I'm definitely not gonna go in with that attitude.
No, well, good luck with it all, mate. I'm sorry for those that I haven't been able to get to everyone's comments. We're going to wrap it up there. It is 1 o'clock, but yeah, thanks, Assad. And Donna's said, great vision. She's certainly happy with the noises you've been making today, as many will be, mate. So thanks so much for coming on the show. Really good luck with the new job. Wish you all the best, and of course here to help, both in terms of our ability to sort of promote the good ideas that are going to come from it. For those that haven't seen it yet, I think it's yesterday, the MSK standards have come out that are for you to have a look at and review and get stuck into. A small part to play in the early stages with regards to some of the working groups, but that work has gone from strength to strength. I haven't got across it all yet, and I'm sure we'll do shows about it, but certainly the sorts of things we've often been talking about. Ash in his previous positions, of course, being saying let's try and codify this and have some care standards and stuff. So it's exciting to see him be able to take some of that on and integrate it into his work. But if you haven't already, then get stuck into those MSK standards that the CSP put out yesterday, and do let me know if you want to come on the show, if you've got someone in mind to discuss that further, or things that you'd like me to riff on regarding that. Then there's definitely something to come from there. But for now, thanks a lot. Ash, anything final to say? Anywhere you can point people? You're on Twitter if they want you, LinkedIn, no doubt.
Yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn. Other than that, nowhere else.
Brilliant. So this is the moment where I press a button, but before it kicks off, you've just got to wave awkwardly and say bye.